In the movie The Martian, a team of astronauts is hit by an unpredicted storm and has to abort their mission on Mars to leave back for Earth. During the evacuation, one of the crew members, Mark Watney, is hit by a projectile due to the storm and is thrown away. The crew is forced to leave him behind, thinking that he died due to a rupture in his spacesuit. However, Mark survives and now has found an ingenious ways to make it to the next scheduled Mars mission 4 years later, with only his meager remaining supplies. But being a botanist, he manages to cultivate food and survives by scavenging parts of previous missions. NASA soon learns about him and attempts to bring him back during a dangerous and daring mission.
Ridley Scott's recent movie, The Martian, didn't necessarily bring any new or groundbreaking elements to the science fiction genre, but it did execute many science fiction tropes very well. And most noticeably, the movie's attention to detail and the extreme amount of research done before its conception. Now, we've taken a brief look at the plot of the movie itself. Let's get into the details of why aerospace engineers will absolutely love this movie. As engineers, we are a bunch of geeks, and we have grown to absolutely accept that. When watching movies, especially works of realistic fiction, like The Martian, that take place in the not-so-distant future, we question, analyze, and overthink the tiniest of details that drive the plot forward. When first watching The Martian, we both found almost every piece of scientific technology used to not only be plausible, but probable. For example, the Hermes. It seems to be properly equipped with the necessary flight and navigation systems to complete a trip to Mars, as well as being able to adapt and overcome nearly every obstacle presented to it. There was only one large element of the movie that truly made us question its realism. This was the storm scene on Mars at the beginning of the film, as discussed in class and later confirmed by looking through several articles online. In the article, The Fact and Fiction of Dust Storms, written by members at NASA, it states, there is almost a 0% chance of a storm of that magnitude. On current Mars conditions, the largest amount of wind a person could feel would just be enough to knock them off balance. This unrealistic part of the movie was difficult to overlook, as it is the main plot-driving event. However, we were able to force down our disappointment and were very impressed with the rest of the movie. As the movie progressed, we had difficulty grasping the plans for rescue made by rocket scientist Rich Purnell, along with the accuracy of his calculations. As we struggled to understand this advanced orbital mechanic, our saving grace was the guidance of a more experienced aerospace engineer.
Eureka! I've got it!
No, this is wrong. No.
No.
Could it be? Could it be?
That's it. It checks out.
The ship that they use is massive, so they probably have some pretty big, massive ion engines on it. But the concept is the same, where it's high efficiency, below thrust, and so that's why they say, oh, you had to wait, or they had to start this maneuver 3 months out in order to make sure they start an orbit around Earth when they get back to Earth, because this engine is so low thrust that if they didn't start this maneuver 3 months out to orbit Earth, then they would slingshot and go back to Mars. So, typically in the book, in the movie, they say, oh, hey, we're going to turn the ship around, face it towards going to Mars, throw the engines the opposite way, and that actually slows them down so that if the mission had gone correctly, they would, by the time they got to Earth, they would actually be in a circular orbit around Earth, which is in the movie, how they explain how they keep going to Mars is that the Hermes is a taxi craft, and you just fly some astronauts up to the Hermes, and the Hermes takes off again and goes back to Mars. But what the astrodynamicist in the book and movie says is, hey, keep the spacecraft oriented the way you're going, and keep accelerating, and by that way, you're actually going to cut your velocity or your time in half, and you're going to increase your velocity so that what would normally take a normal mission to get to Mars is actually going to take like 3/4 of the time or half the time, something like that. And this maneuver is actually known as, in aerospace terms, as what's called a flyby. And we do this a lot to get satellites into the outer rim as well. And that's because what we do is we fly it very close to a hemispherical body, like the moon or Mars or whatever planet you want to think of, and we fly it close to them, and that actually gives us a lot of energy to slingshot basically the spacecraft in a different direction. And you can see this in a lot of different space movies. Another one where they use this same type of maneuver is in the movie Armageddon, where the astronauts slingshot around the moon to pick up velocity and go back to the asteroid to go destroy the asteroid. So it's a very well-known maneuver. It works very efficiently, and it's completely plausible in the realm of the book The Martian.
To further verify the calculations and hypotheses of an orbital slingshot, we recreated the Hermes and ran it through our advanced orbital simulator, the Kerbal Space Program. After watching Ridley Scott's The Martian, we spent countless hours recreating the space travel scene and researching the science behind it, yet we still were unable to find any flaws, thus making it one of the most realistic scientific fiction films we've ever seen. If other detail-oriented aerospace engineers can look past the storm early on, they will fall in love with the attention to scientific detail and realism of the film.